We all break at some point. Sometimes it's quiet, a slow erosion of who we are. Other times it's loud, a collapse that leaves us breathless, confused and lost. But whether the fall was subtle or sudden, one truth remains. You have the power to rebuild yourself. And when you rebuild yourself, you change your life. But before you start rebuilding, you need to pause. Not to panic, not to spiral, but to understand. Understand why you broke in the first place. Most people rush to fix the cracks without asking what caused them. They chase results instead of reason. But you can't fix the outside until you face what's happening inside. We don't break without reason. There's always something beneath the surface, something we've ignored, avoided, or buried for too long. And when it finally reaches a breaking point, it often feels like everything collapses at once. But if you want to rebuild yourself and truly change your life, the very first step is not to move forward blindly. It's to look back with clarity. You must understand why you broke down in the first place. Too often, we label our breaking point as failure or weakness. We treat it like a moment to be ashamed of or something to get over quickly. But breakdowns aren't failures. They're signals. They're your soul, your mind, your body, all trying to get your attention. They whisper at first, then they nudge, and if you keep ignoring them, they finally scream. The breakdown is the... Maybe you broke down because you were chasing something that was never yours to chase. Success, status, relationships, all built on someone else's definition of worth. You pushed yourself harder and harder, trying to fit a mold that never felt right, but you thought it was the only path. And slowly, without realizing it, you disconnected from yourself. Or maybe it was exhaustion. And that builds over time mental, emotional, spiritual fatigue from constantly giving, pleasing, sacrificing. You thought you were doing the right thing by being there for everyone else, but you forgot to be there for yourself. And one day, your body and your mind couldn't carry the weight anymore. Sometimes the breakdown comes from silence, the things we never say, the pain we never admit, the dreams we bury because they seem too big, too unrealistic, or too late to chase. So we live in compromise, convincing ourselves we're fine, while deep down, a quiet sadness grows. Eventually, that sadness becomes a storm. And let's be honest, we break because we stay too long in places we've outgrown. We stay in jobs that drain us, in relationships that shrink us, in routines that numb us. We tell ourselves it's safe. We say it's not that bad, but deep down we know this isn't it. We ignore the signs until the signs become consequences. Understanding why you broke down isn't about blaming yourself or blaming others. It's about owning your story. It's about having the courage to say, something wasn't right. And now I get to figure out what that was. Because when you skip this step, when you try to rebuild without reflection, you risk recreating the same patterns, just in a new disguise. You change the surface, but the foundation stays cracked. The focus needs to be on awareness, not on convenience. You have to face the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is. Maybe it wasn't just one moment. Maybe it was years of ignoring yourself. That's okay. What matters now is that you choose to learn from it. You choose to extract the wisdom from the wound. You choose to break the cycle. And that choice, that awareness, is what gives your breakdown meaning. It becomes the turning point, not the ending. It becomes the reason you finally stop living on autopilot and start living with intention. So don't rush to rebuild. Sit with your story, unpack it, understand it. Because once you know why you broke down, you'll know exactly how to build something better. And this time you'll build it on truth. But when most people try to change their lives, the first thing they look for is a strategy, a new morning routine, a fitness plan, a productivity system. They look for tactics, hacks, and steps to follow. But here's the hard truth. Strategy doesn't matter if you don't know who you are. Identity comes before strategy, always. Without a strong sense of identity, any strategy will eventually fail. You can only sustain behavior that aligns with your beliefs about yourself. If you try to build new habits or chase new goals without shifting how you see yourself, you'll always feel like an imposter in your own life. You'll revert to the old patterns, not because you're weak, but because deep down you're still holding on to the old version of who you think you are. Ask yourself, who am I when no one's watching? Who am I without my achievements, without my social media profile, without the roles I play? That's identity, not what you do, but who you are when everything else is stripped away. A person who believes I'm always late can try every time management app on the market, but they'll still struggle to be on time because they haven't changed the belief that drives the behavior. A person who believes I'm just not disciplined can hire a coach, follow a diet, and still fall off because their self-position hasn't caught up with their efforts. Change that identity, though, and suddenly everything else aligns. This is why real growth isn't about adding more to your plate. It's about subtracting the lies you've been living under. It's about shedding the expectations and pressures that told you who you should be so you can uncover who you truly are. Once you get clear on your identity, decisions become easier. You don't need a dozen strategies. You need alignment. If you identify as someone who values health, you won't need to force yourself to work out. It becomes part of who you are. If you see yourself as a leader, you'll act like one, speak like one, and carry yourself with purpose without needing to perform or impress. But getting there means asking difficult questions. What labels have you accepted that no longer serve you? What stories are you still telling yourself about what you're not good at? Who told you those things, and why did you believe them? You have to rewrite your internal narrative before you can redesign your external world. That means declaring, I am someone who follows through. Or I am the kind of person who shows up even when it's hard. These statements might feel unfamiliar at first, even fake, but the more you act in alignment with them, the more true they become. Identity isn't fixed, it's shaped by repetition. This is also why copying someone else's strategy rarely works. What worked for them fits their identity, their context, their story. It might not fit yours. Don't just adopt a strategy, adapt it to who you are becoming. Build from the inside out. Too many people try to become successful without becoming someone different. But real transformation demands identity shift. It's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. So before you create a 5-year plan, before you chase the next goal, stop and ask yourself, who is the person I need to become to live that life? Once that question is answered, the strategy becomes obvious. Because when your identity is right, your actions naturally follow. Sometimes we try to change our lives by making small edits to a structure that was never meant to hold us. We add a new habit here, adjust a mindset there, set goals, tweak routines, all while still living under the same old beliefs, the same expectations, and the same identity that caused the problems in the first place. That's like remodeling a house built on a cracked foundation. No matter how good the paint looks, it won't last. If you want real change, you can't just upgrade the old blueprint. You have to burn it. The old blueprint is everything that once made you feel safe but now keeps you stuck. It's the rules you followed to be accepted, the habits you formed to survive, the goals you inherited but never questioned. It's the version of yourself that was shaped by fear, by comparison, by pressure to fit in, not by purpose. And yet, many people cling to it because it's familiar, it's predictable. Even if it's painful, it's still what they know. But growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from confrontation, especially with the parts of yourself you've outgrown. That means being willing to let go of what once worked, even if it got you far. The hardest truth to accept is that the version of you that got you here might not be the one who can take you further. Maybe your old blueprint said you always have to prove yourself. Maybe it said success means being busy. Maybe it told you to stay quiet, to not take up too much space, to play it safe. Whatever it was, that version of you was trying to protect you. But protection isn't the same as progress. There comes a point where holding on to who you were starts to suffocate who you're meant to be. Burning the old blueprint doesn't mean throwing away your past. It means choosing to no longer be ruled by it. It means rewriting the internal code you've been living by. If the old version said, you're not good enough, the new one says, I grow through effort. If the old version said, keep everyone happy, the new one says, honor your own boundaries. It's not about rebelling blindly, it's about rising intentionally. This process is scary because it requires uncertainty. When you let go of the old blueprint, there's a period where you don't quite know who you are yet. That in-between space is uncomfortable, but it's also powerful. It's where you get to build from truth instead of reaction, from vision instead of fear. Letting go also means releasing the people, habits, and environments that were part of that old design. Not out of resentment, but out of recognition. That version of you no longer fits, and it's okay to move on. You don't owe your past self permanence. You owe your future self honesty. This is your permission to break the cycle, to stop patching leaks and start building new walls, to stop apologizing for change. Change is not betrayal, it's evolution. And if you're evolving, it means you're still alive, still growing, still becoming. So stop trying to renovate a version of you that you've already outgrown. Stop asking for directions from the mindset that got you lost. There's no freedom in repeating old patterns. Burn the old blueprint, not out of anger, but out of love. because you're finally ready to build a life that fits who you're becoming, not who you used to be. And once you do that, every next step becomes lighter. Every goal becomes clearer because you're not building on old fear anymore. You're building on truth, on alignment, on a foundation that can actually carry the life you were meant to live. In a world that rewards noise, attention, and constant sharing, building in silence almost feels unnatural. We've been conditioned to announce every move, broadcast every plan, and prove our progress to people who are barely paying attention. But the truth is, some of the most powerful transformations happen when no one's watching. Real growth doesn't need to be loud, it needs to be purposeful. And that kind of growth thrives in silence. Silence doesn't mean doing nothing, it means doing the work without the need for validation. The silence gives you space to listen to your doubts, to your desires, to the quiet truth inside you that often gets drowned out by the world's noise. You get to ask deeper questions. Am I doing this because it's right or because it looks good? Am I becoming the person I want to be or just someone who looks impressive on the surface? There is strength in building privately. It forces you to anchor your actions in intention, not impact. When no one's watching, the only person you're accountable to is yourself. That's where discipline is born. That's where integrity is built. That's where purpose starts to take root. It's easy to get distracted when you build in public. You start optimizing for attention. You start chasing speed over depth. And suddenly, you're not growing in alignment with who you are. You're performing for an audience that doesn't even know you. That's not growth. That's performance disguised as progress. Purpose doesn't grow in performance. It grows in patience. And patience is built when you realize that you don't need to prove anything. You're not in a race. You're not behind. You're not late. You're building something real. And real things take time. A tree doesn't shout while it grows. It roots itself deeply, quietly, unseen, but eventually it becomes unshakable. The people who grow the most aren't always the loudest. They're the ones doing the inner work, the uncomfortable work, the unglamorous work. They're healing, learning, unlearning. They're showing up daily, not to be seen, but to be better. That's what it means to grow in purpose. It's about knowing why you're doing what you're doing. It's about being connected to something deeper than ego. Maybe it's your family, maybe it's your mission, maybe it's just the desire to live a life that feels honest, free, and real. Whatever your purpose is, hold on to it because that's what will carry you through the silence. Growth isn't a straight line. Some seasons are loud, some are hidden, but the hidden seasons are where the foundation is laid. That's where your character is built. That's where your values get tested. And that's where your strength is born, not from shouting, but from staying true when no one's clapping. So give yourself permission to build quietly, to disconnect from the need for attention, to stop explaining your every move. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to show receipts for every step you take. Your purpose is the proof. And when it's time, the results will speak so loudly, you won't have to. Keep showing up, keep building in silence, and trust that if you grow in purpose, everything else will fall into place. Not overnight, but exactly when it's meant to. Perfection is a lie that keeps people stuck. It whispers, don't start until it's flawless. Don't share it until it's polished. Don't move until it's safe. And because of that lie, dreams get delayed, ideas stay unspoken, and growth never begins. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. If you wait for perfection, you'll wait forever. Progress, not perfection, is what creates change. Progress is messy. It's full of awkward starts, failed attempts, and small wins that no one sees. It's doing the workout even when it's short, writing the page even when it's not great, showing up even when you don't feel ready. That's the work. That's the climb. That's what actually moves you forward. Perfection isn't just a high standard. It's a trap. It convinces you that anything less than ideal isn't worth doing, so you either overanalyze, procrastinate, or quit before you really begin. You compare your first step to someone else's 10th year and call yourself a failure. But what you're really doing is robbing yourself of the one thing that makes success possible, momentum. Progress is where confidence lives. Every time you act, even in a small way, you send yourself a message, I can do this. I'm becoming someone new. And over time, those actions compound. They turn into habits. Habits turn into character, and character becomes your new identity. But it all starts with progress, not perfection. People don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they never build enough momentum to believe they're capable. That's what perfection steals from you, the ability to build self-trust through action. When you let go of needing things to be perfect, you make space to actually grow. The truth is, no one who ever did anything meaningful started with perfection. They started with fear, with doubt, was a rough version of an idea, and the courage to move anyway. The book that changed someone's life started as a messy draft. The business that grew into something huge began with a shaky first sale. The transformation you admire in someone else was once just a choice to do something small consistently. You don't need the perfect plan. You need the next step. And then the one after that. Progress lives in those tiny steps you take when no one's watching, when you choose discipline over comfort, action over thinking, effort over excuses. Let yourself be a beginner. Be willing to look foolish. Be willing to try, to stumble, to not have it all figured out. The people who grow the fastest are the ones who give themselves permission to not be great at the start. Because they know that progress is a path. And you only find your rhythm by walking it, not by planning it forever. You can fix something that's in motion. You can adjust course while moving. But you can't fix what never begins, and you can't steer a parked car. So instead of waiting for the perfect moment, create a real one. Take action, send the message, make the call, show up to the gym, record the video, start ugly, start scared, start small, but start. Because every time you move, you close the gap between who you are and who you're becoming. Progress over perfection isn't just a mindset. It's a way of life. It means trusting that done is better than perfect. That effort is better than appearance. That motion is more powerful than motivation. Perfection might impress people, but progress transforms you. And transformation is the real win. Keep moving. Keep building. Keep going. Imperfectly, but consistently. Because every step counts. And eventually all those steps add up to a life you're proud to call your own. You can't grow into a new version of yourself while living in the environment that shaped the old one. Your mindset can shift, your habits can improve, your goals can change, but if your environment stays the same, the people, the places, the conversations, eventually that old energy pulls you back. Because growth isn't just internal, it needs to be supported externally. Your environment must evolve too. The truth is, we become what we're around. If you're constantly surrounded by negativity, complacency, or small thinking, it doesn't matter how big your vision is, it will be drained. If the people closest to you mock ambition or discourage discipline, then success becomes an uphill battle. Not because you're not capable, but because you're trying to fly with anchors tied to your feet. It's not just about people either. It's your physical space, your routines, your digital world. Everything around you is either reinforcing who you're becoming or pulling you back into who you used to be. That's why changing your environment isn't optional. It's essential. Look at your surroundings. Are they helping you focus or feeding your distractions? Does your space support your goals or constantly remind you of your past? Do your conversations push you forward or keep you playing small? These are hard questions, but they matter because your environment is either a mirror of your past or a design for your future. Sometimes, evolving your environment means letting go of relationships that no longer align with your values. Not out of judgment, but out of necessity. You can love people from a distance and still protect your growth. You can outgrow people without resentment. Growth requires boundaries. It requires you to stop apologizing for choosing peace, clarity, and elevation. Other times, it's about what you consume, the content you watch, the words you listen to, the energy you allow into your mind every day. You can't feed your mind junk and expect it to create clarity. You can't constantly scroll through comparison and expect to feel confident. If you want to build a new life, start by guarding the gate of your attention. Even your daily routines are part of your environment, your calendar, your habits, your rituals. They tell a story about what matters to you. If your schedule is filled with chaos, obligations, and distractions, how will you ever have the space to build something meaningful? Structure isn't restriction, it's support. It's how you make sure your actions reflect your priorities. It also means putting yourself in spaces that stretch you, rooms where you're not the smartest, conversations that challenge you, environments where growth is normal, not ridiculed. The right environment doesn't just support your goals, it elevates them. It makes you feel like your next level isn't just possible, it's expected. You don't have to change everything at once. Start small, clean your space, curate your feed. Spend time with people who are driven, kind, focused. Design your mornings with intention. Replace noise with reflection. Bit by bit, build a world around you that makes your growth feel natural. Because no matter how much you change on the inside, you'll always be shaped by what surrounds you. So make your environment a reflection of where you're going, not where you've been. You are allowed to evolve, and so is your world. Upgrade it without guilt. Adjust it without apology, because if your environment supports your vision becomes unstoppable. Growth isn't just a decision, it's a design. And it begins with where you choose to live, think, and exist every single day.